Right here is Lauren Talbot. She used to be the chief programmer for the city of New York under Mayor Bloomberg, which is my favorite city in the world. Right next to her is Georgos Zakaria, who is the CTO of Kayak, which is my favorite company in the world because I travel a lot, so I use Kayak almost every day. And so the way that we do our panels is a little bit different because it's not our panel, it's actually your panel. If you have any questions, just say, hey, Hunter, and we will address that in real time. We have a short amount of time. I think right now we have about 20 minutes, about 25 minutes, so we're going to get right into it. So the title of our panel is like, don't get lost in the big data. And in that fashion, we're probably not going to talk about too much data. We're going to try and make it as human as possible. But if you have data questions, ask us. So, you guys ready? Let's go. Okay, so my first question is for you. So you and I met in New York about a year ago. We actually had quite a funny meeting. We got introduced by a mutual friend, and then we had a lunch somewhere kind of like around 23rd and 9th, if anyone knows where that is in New York. And so my question to you is like, when you were 8 years old, what did you want to be when you grew up?
An actress or a veterinarian?
Yes, and I'll ask you the same question. When you were 8 years old, what did you want to be when you grew up?
A mathematician.
Yeah. Hey, that's fantastic. And so I think this question is always very important because you know what you wanted to be when you were 8 years old and what you're doing now is kind of sometimes very aligned in your case, and sometimes very well. I mean, I guess are you an actress or?
No.
Could we get another mic if it's possible? That'd be really great. 2, if possible, that'd be really great. Yeah, so I think like the idea of what you wanted to be and then growing into that. And I think now the jobs that we have don't really exist, right? Like your job is a data scientist. Like what did that mean when we were younger? Like were there any things from your youth that would lead you to believe that you would be doing the job that you do now?
Data scientist is a job title that was invented in 2001, so there would have been no way for me to know that at 8 years old.
Yeah, all right.
Couldn't possibly anticipate this, but I admit that I'm having a lot of fun working in travel and actually doing things that are data-driven. Yeah, couldn't have possibly anticipated.
Why don't you keep the mic for a second? Yeah. Thank you. Yes, we have succeeded. We now have 2 microphones. We might get a third, and that would be awesome. So tell us a little bit about how you got to Kayak and kind of what was your path to doing what you're doing now?
So after my master's at MIT, I started a couple of startups, and I was introduced to Kayak. Kayak was actually my first job working for somebody by a former engineer. Kayak at the time had a serious accuracy problem with Northwest airline results. Yeah. More than half the clicks would lead to a bait and switch experience, and it wasn't Kayak's fault. It was what Northwest was providing Kayak. And they tried to address the problem with some rule-based approaches that didn't quite work out.
Yes.
So my former engineer introduced me to Kayak. We implemented a machine learning approach and wiped out most of the inaccuracies by partially reverse engineering the revenue management that Northwest was implementing at the time. And then the founder made me an offer I couldn't refuse. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
So you applied to like an online forum, or you knew someone who worked in the business? Like how did you get into Kayak?
Personal introduction. One of the engineers from my first startup was already working at Kayak and introduced me to the founder.
Oh, fantastic. And Lauren, how do you get to the city of New York? Like, it sounds like a pretty interesting story.
Craigslist, actually.
Really?
Yes, really. It's a little bit embarrassing, but they posted on Craigslist for the job title of analyst at the Financial Crimes Task Force. And eventually that evolved into chief programmer at the Mayor's Office of Data Analytics.
That's fantastic. So this is like 2000 what?
2011.
So this is like 4 years ago. So the city of New York posts an ad on Craigslist. You're on Craigslist. You see the ad. and you apply?
Yeah, I mean, the data just sounded really interesting. I'm a native New Yorker, so the idea of going from what I was doing before, which is working with healthcare data, to data about what's going on around you, fascinating.
Wow, that's great. Craigslist. Does everyone know Craigslist? Because that's kind of funny. And everyone knows Kayak in this room? Yeah? Great. I think, we were talking about this earlier, but I think Kayak did such a great job on creating a really nice user experience. And so at that time, and because I travel a lot, I just it was the quickest way to find the fastest results. And I'm a huge fan of Kayak.
So, user experience actually, and data-driven user experience optimization is one of our differentiations. We kind of run the company as a hedge fund, so all decisions are data-driven, and the UI is optimized in a Darwinian way. An engineer can come up with any idea and test it on the website, and the one that does the best in terms of monetization and user experience wins. So it's increasingly more difficult to beat the previous version of the website. Oh, wow. But it's a continuous incremental improvement process.
Oh, fantastic. How many people work at Kayak right now?
Less than 400.
Less than 400?
Yeah.
Wow. And what's the split engineers to other functions?
Technical people are about three quarters of the company. So it's heavily product focused.
Fantastic. Yeah. How many in the room are engineers? Product managers? Students? Fantastic. Yeah. All right. Where should we go next, guys? I know where we should go. Okay, so, you said earlier that the job data scientist wasn't invented till just recently. How do you think, even in your own world, how has your job changed since when you went in to when you came out, and kind of how do you see data evolving over this very short amount of time?
Yeah, well, when I started, I was using different tools. I wasn't using the most up-to-date tools, and since then the technologies have sprung up to meet the need of data scientists, and also the amount of data is just growing exponentially because we're collecting it everywhere, and then we have data about the data. So the data's grown, and the technology, it's like an arms race to keep up with it.
Data about data, right? Data on data on data. Got it. What do you think?
A quite similar experience. When I joined Kayak 6 years ago, it would take us a few days to extract the data to train an algorithm for the hotel personalization sorting. Now you can get it with a Hive query in a matter of minutes. So computational power and software has improved the data scientists' work dramatically.
Because we're talking about data, just how much data is Kayak processing? How many flights a day are you guys doing? What are the numbers that you can talk about, just to put it in perspective?
We have more than 1 billion user queries per year, and more than 30 million data observations per day. And we use that data both to improve the product, like the accuracy problem that I described earlier. You use predictive modeling to wipe out fares that we anticipate they are no longer available, but also to come up with new product ideas like price forecasting and hotel ranking, ad ranking, etc.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I think everybody's interested in kind of understanding more about how New York City was using data. What are some interesting stories that you can share with us about kind of about that evolution?
Yeah, sure. So one of the first things that we were asked to do was basically help the fire department prevent deadly fires. And that involved taking data from multiple agencies and bringing it together to just basically predict fire risk, and then target inspections from the buildings department and the fire department towards those buildings that were most likely to have a fire that was deadly. So essentially saving lives.
Yeah, that's great. And so I remember, I was in New York during Hurricane Sandy, and so that was 2012, right? Yeah, so for anyone who doesn't know, Hurricane Sandy was a hurricane that came into New York and kind of wiped out the power from about 28th Street down, or 30th Street down, and it was really surreal. I was living kind of down in Tribeca at the time, and there was no power for a week. And it's like if you walk around New York City with no power, it's a very surreal thing. It's also kind of scary, but it was super surreal. And so, like, when that natural disaster hits the city, like, what do you do? Like, what do you do? Like, how do you mobilize your team? What are you guys working on first? Like, just unpack that for us.
So we were actually called in right after the hurricane to immediately get started on helping. And the first thing that we were asked to do is help the Parks Department clear fallen trees. Fallen trees were actually a really huge problem with the hurricane. They were falling on power lines, they were falling on cars, people were getting trapped underneath them, and people were calling in these tree complaints to 911, but it's the Parks Department that handles them, so they were actually kind of falling through the cracks. So what we had to do is, in a matter of a 10-hour coding session, basically translate these 911 calls into 311 complaints that were geocoded so that the Parks Department could respond.
Okay, so that's task number one. It's you and a team of how many people?
One.
Just you. So it's just you.
No, me and one other person.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's pretty amazing, right? Okay, so the city of New York has 2 people working on this problem, like...
Well, from a coding perspective. There were other people working on other aspects of it, and I don't want to minimize the amount of effort that was put into it. But from a coding perspective, there were 2 people working on it.
But that's crazy, because like the city of New York, and I think most early stage startups in here have more than 2 engineers, right? Wow, that's great. Okay, so, and then how do you deal with the water, right? How do you deal with the flooding of the city and the electricity? Like, did you guys have electricity? Were you programming and all of a sudden the electricity went out, or?
Well, actually, they had the Office of Emergency Management was in downtown Brooklyn, so that was a sort of oasis from all the power outages. My power went out where I was living, and so they had to bring me out there. But from a more broad perspective, what we had to do was basically coordinate between multiple agencies that were all doing, disaster relief to try to keep up to date on what had been done already, where the most important high priority issues were, and just basically deploying resources most efficiently and not duplicating efforts across those agencies.
Yeah, between you and the other person.
Oh no, so at that point, that was actually, what I just said was just months and months after the hurricane. So that was more than just me and 2 people, it was our whole office, which was about 5 people. So.
Super good. Yorgos, how much do you travel?
A bit too much.
A bit too much? Where you live in Boston?
Yes.
But you guys also have an office here.
Yeah, so we are a very distributed team. We have 6 main offices. The engineering team and technical team is split between 2 offices in Boston, one in Cambridge and one outside in the suburbs to accommodate commuting. We have our biggest office here in Berlin, and then another office in Lithuania, in Kaunas, Lithuania.
Fantastic. And so you have a PhD in machine learning from MIT. What's that like? Or like, what was the process like to get the PhD? Or like, what's some interesting stuff that you learned? Or like,
So it's actually a very non-typical process for me. I did the PhD as a visa shelter to stay in the country, and while working for startups. So my PhD advisor didn't see me much. I mostly, for me, it was educational to hang out with some of the people in the laboratory, challenge each other, but the biggest value of MIT is actually the people rather than the...
totally.
And then things that I would learn there, I would apply into my startup, and then also create a chapter of the thesis. Yeah.
So you hacked a PhD for a visa?
Yeah, it worked.
Oh, nice. But I mean, like, not anybody can just hack a PhD. You have to have like the hard. They have to have the brain first. Right?
I thought I was a genius, and then I found out at least another 5 people doing the same thing. So,
oh, really?
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, guys, let's go into the future. Let's go to 2020, which is only about 5 years from now. Where is Kayak in 2020? Where is the city of New York in 2020? Or like, where are we in 2020? Like, where's data in 2020? You can take any piece of that you want.
So I think Kayak is even more mobile and even more personalizable. It's an assistant for you while you travel and proactively helping you during your travel. We are incrementally working towards that task, but there's nothing more personal than a device that follows you all the time. And we know what the user has booked. We know what the user has looked to book and whatever aspirational searches they have done in the past. So Kayak should be proactively helping the user throughout the trip.
Yeah. If what we've seen in the past 5 years is any indication, then all the little things that we do to make data science possible will be, fully automated, and they'll be their own tools. And so basically, what we'll have is artificial intelligence, and so it'll be all about figuring out what data you want to collect, how you want to collect it, and then how you operationalize that, which has always been the biggest challenge, but the ROI will just be so much higher.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think it's just important for us to like realize how far we've come in such a short amount of time. Sometimes I just have to pinch myself and be like, wow, this is really, really interesting. So a little bit, so we're, like, what I'm working on is like the data of dreams, which is kind of, is this interesting thing which ties into everything. It's because it's like, what we're doing is we're surfacing invisible data, right? So this data didn't exist before until we can measure it. Now that invisible data is visible, and now what do we do with it? And as you're saying, like, how do we connect all these different data sets and create an operation around it? I think it's fascinating. I think we should touch on like how we feel about data security, data privacy in the future, because I think that's kind of like, at least for us, it's kind of like a big thing. And I'd like to know from your guys' standpoint, like, what needs to happen in data security and data privacy for everyone to trust big corporations with more data?
So there is this constant tension between collecting everything, because that allows you to build better products, not being creepy and not violating what the user considers private. I think the right thing is give the user the choice between how much they are willing to share with you, and explain to the user what the value is, what the potential value is in sharing that data, and let the user choose.
In terms of data security, it seems like the biggest issue, it's always an arms race, but the biggest issue is human error, I think. So I think we'll see technologies springing up to deal with that. You can never completely eliminate it. Also, bad actors, also a thing, but data science can be used to identify and predict bad actors as well. So I think that data privacy is more of a cultural issue. It's definitely something that I care about. I think we all care about it. And so I guess that's more of a question about humanity than anything else.
Yeah, right. But can you give us an example, just because maybe people don't know the term bad actor, could you give us an example from your previous job of a bad actor? Or if that's too controversial, you can segue into something else.
A bad actor would be like someone committing mortgage fraud, for example. And then from a data security perspective, a bad actor would be someone who's phishing, trying to get your security credentials by spoofing a domain.
Fantastic. Okay, so we have about 5 minutes left. If anyone has a question, now is the time to ask. If you don't, I'm going to continue rolling on. But don't be shy. We'll bring you a microphone. All right. I'll bring you the microphone.
For a newbie to data sciences, what are some tools we can start playing around with to, improve the product or just mine data to make better decisions?
Good question.
you should learn Python and take the Coursera courses on machine learning and Hive Hadoop. You know those 4 things, you're done.
That's what I was going to say.
Hi, my name is Kees from MyWhy. I have a question. What do you think that the most important thing that a CEO can do, a CTO can do? So the most important role as a CTO, basically, in the company.
Yeah, the most important role is to keep fostering innovation, especially for a company the size of Kayak. That is a constant challenge. You have to ensure that as you grow, you continue you continue to maintain the rate of innovation. And our solution that seems to be working is ensure we have an extremely flat hierarchy with small teams that can take their own initiatives and use process as a tool rather than become a servant to the process.
Thank you. Question here?
Hi, I'm Marian. I work for Kayak. I'm wondering about big data as a topic because I feel like big data has been this big talk, of town, and for some reason I still feel like big data is not really so visible to me in my everyday life. So I wonder what you guys think of, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how far developed the whole big data idea right now is in reality, and where it's going to take us in the next 5 years.
You should know, Marian, that the more the data, the merrier. Right? So I think big data drives better products and better personalization. And I don't think it needs to be too transparent and visible to the user what size of data is behind, as long as the user has control what kind of private data they share with you. Like, you don't expose to the user what kind of operating systems you are running or what type of algorithms you have behind the scenes. So I think it's up to the product development to extract as much value as possible from whatever data you collect.
I'd love to hear your answer on this.
I mean, data is growing exponentially, which makes it a really exciting field because, first it was, okay, gigabytes are fine, then it's okay, terabytes are fine, next it's going to be, okay, petabytes are fine. But the data is still growing exponentially, so until it stops, I don't see this ever ending.
Yeah, and then, so I'm going to ask a question, and this might be the last question. So, it is so let's say that you're not doing what you're doing now. What product or service would you work on that you feel so passionate about that is kind of tangential to big data, but will be the best thing to kind of push things forward? So you're not working on what you're working now. You can work on anything. What do you work on and why?
For me, the most exciting thing is the growth of mobile. When we launched our app in 2009, it was let's just test it. I never anticipated at the time that people would actually use their devices as transactional tools and as a desktop replacement. So enhancing the mobile experience, I think, whether in Kayak or in other e-commerce ways, is extremely exciting. Yeah.
I think two-way digital interpersonal communication is an amazing data source that says so much about relationships and human interaction, and I would love to study that.
So studying human interpersonalization.
Yeah, I think it's very close to home for all of us, which makes it dangerous, but it's so fascinating.
Yeah, I think, because when just we speak to each other, there's so much other stuff going on, right? And so what is the data, the subtext that we're saying, or this or that? And then when you put cameras out there and you put microphones out there, I mean, every phone has a camera and a microphone on it. So any last questions before we sign off? Patty.
I actually want to follow up on what you just said. I'm from New York. I remember Sandy. My question is, I'm a psychologist. I'm curious, what are you guys personally excited about this year?
In terms of?
In terms of anything. Like, what gets you up in the morning? What are you excited about?
I mean, I'm excited about I'm excited about the tech scene in New York. New York's always been known for like finance and Wall Street, and now we have this Silicon Alley, and Cornell Tech is a new tech campus that is only growing. Bloomberg spearheaded that as a project, so we're going to be seeing even more engineers and just tech people in general. So we're going to see the industry grow a lot over the next few years.
I'm excited about the 2016 elections. I think they will turn out to be very entertaining.
Excited about that too.
I'm excited for everybody in this room in the day that you're about to have. So everyone stand up. Really quick, stand up, stand up, stand up. Remember, time is more important than money. Thank you for your time. Thank you much.